tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This day is flying by. Guess that's what happens when you're busy, huh? Been dealing with insurance crap. Stuff I shouldn't even have to be dealing with. But it is what it is. What happened was Medicaid sent a letter to my doctor saying that my Medicaid was going to be over at the end of June, beginning of July. Well, they took it as the end of May and cut my insurance. Kaiser did. And now they're like, well, just reinstate it real quick. I'm like, you don't understand. You guys charged me for a bill, or it wasn't charged. They wanted me to pay $60 to see the doctor. I'm like, I don't have $60. So I canceled the appointment. But in all actuality, I did have coverage. So now I missed the appointment to get what I need to get done. And I can't reset it because there's only a week left in the month. Thanks. Of course, no one's going to take accountability. I think we got it worked out, though. So that's what I've been dealing with today. Welcome to Daily Trudge. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Amber. Good to see you both. Welcome to Daily Trudge. Dion, if you're here. Welcome to Daily Trudge, Dion. My name is Dion. Excuse me. If you're here, please say hello. Whether you're watching the live or the rewatch. So, I decided I'm going to use an AA pamphlet today. Why not use the AA literature, right? Kind of see what they have to say. Whether I agree with it or not isn't really into, we all know a lot about it. It has some of the same basic stuff, but I'm going to do what I can to kind of cover most of it. It's 32 pages long, so we're not going to get to everything, but I'll definitely cover the highlights. Now, since you two are here, would you prefer that I shared my screen and showed it, or do you want to continue seeing my happy face? Because if I share my screen, I'm not going to be able to see what you're posting. I don't think. Let's try it. Well, let's give it a try here, ladies and gentlemen. There. See? But I'll have to go back and forth to do that. I'll view the PDF. There we go. There's the PDF. So you let me know in chat which way you prefer. Or if you'd rather I was just on screen, do it the usual way that I do. I'm going to do it this way for now so you can read it also. But if the choice is made that Amber says, I'm driving, I don't care. Oh, thanks. She just doesn't care. Is it even showing the right one? No, it is not. Okay. There we go. That's the one that we want. There we go. All right. What is sponsorship? And I'm not going to read all of this. I'm just going to kind of skim on through it. Alcoholics Anonymous began with sponsorship. When Bill W., only a few months sober, was stricken with a powerful urge to drink, the thought came to him, you need another alcoholic to talk to. You need another alcoholic just as much as he needs you. He found Dr. Bob, who had been trying desperately and unsuccessfully to stop drinking, and out of their common need, AA was born. The word sponsor was not used then. The 12 steps had not been written, but Bill carried the message to Dr. Bob, who in turn safeguarded his own sobriety by sponsoring countless other alcoholics. I can't feel my face. Okay, she just came from the dentist. That'll be me next Monday. All right. Through sharing, both their co-founders discovered their own sober lives could be enriched beyond measure. What does AA mean by sponsorship? To join some organizations, you must have a sponsor, a person who vouches for you presents you as being as suitable for membership. This is definitely not the case with AA. Anyone who has a desire to stop drinking is welcome to join us, right? So, um, since you guys don't care, I'm going to move to my phone then because I prefer this way. I was just trying to make it easier for everybody else, right? So, but in the beginning, that is the way that AA was working. It wasn't until we found a few things out, right? But sponsorship is not in the sense that we use it. It's open to everyone. We're we're more all inclusive. We AA members want to find a reason to say yes. That's what we go for. All right. In AA, sponsor and sponsored meet as equals, just as Bill and Bob did. Essentially, the process of sponsorship is this: an alcoholic who has made some progress in the recovery program shares that experience on as a continuous individual basis with another alcoholic who is attempting to attain or maintain sobriety through AA. All right. So I'm going to read one more paragraph in this, and then we'll kind of move on to some of the other questions. When we first begin to attend AA meetings, we may feel confused and sick and apprehensive. Although people at meetings respond to our questions willingly, that alone isn't enough. Many other questions occurred to us between meetings. We find that we need constant, close support as we begin learning how to live sober, right? And so, a sponsor, that's why I put together the Grassroots WhatsApp group. That's the main reason. So that if your sponsor isn't available, there's a whole group of people there. There's a whole group, and there is somebody in that group almost all the time that is willing to talk. Right? So, kind of a group sponsorship, right? So, for the person seeking a sponsor, how does sponsorship differ from 12-step calls? A 12-step call, visiting an alcoholic who has asked for help and talking about AA program with him or her, may become the beginning of sponsorship, but by itself is not necessarily sponsorship. Just because I 12-step somebody and they came into the program does not make me their sponsor. Maybe I'm their first closed mouth friend. Maybe I have 60 days in the program and I'm not ready to sponsor. Right? Doesn't matter how long you've been in the program. I give it a week before you can 12-step somebody. Yeah. Right? And 12-step is just answering questions about AA, explaining the AA program to somebody who might be interested in what we do. That's really all it is. Oh, I think I just got some heartburn. Sponsorship with this continuing interest in another alcoholic often develops when the prospect is willing to be helped, admits to having a drinking problem, and decides to seek sobriety as a solution. Sponsorship is 12-step work, but it is also continuing responsibility for helping a newcomer adjust to a way of life without alcohol. So if you're not ready to sponsor, you can explain how you found your sponsor. You can do that, right? See, there's always a way to help. Saying, I'm too new. You know where to get a big book. I'm stealing some stuff from Amber here. You know where to get a big book. You know how to find meetings. You know this stuff. Okay. Are there some limitations at that point? Sure. But if we focus on the limitations of what we can't do, then we avoid the things that we can do. Right. How should a sponsor be chosen? You know, I'm not going to agree with some of this. The process of matching newcomer and sponsor is as informal as everything else in AA. I would agree with that. Often the new person simply approaches a more experienced member who seems compatible and asks that member to be a sponsor. Most AAs are happy and grateful to receive such a request. Are they? Are they? That was not my experience. I got told no a lot, but I was like 4 or 5 years sober. Anyway, That's my own problem, and it doesn't really belong here. All right. An old AA saying suggests stick with the winners. Yeah, yeah. Stick with the winners. It is only reasonable to seek a sharing of experience with a member who seems to be using AA programs successful in everyday life. There are no specific rules, but a good sponsor should be a year or more away from the last drink and should seem to be enjoying sobriety. All right. So there's the suggestions that we have. A year or more, but it doesn't always work out that way. It does not always work out that way. What they're giving us is an average. Yeah. Took me about a year to get through the steps. Okay. I had a lot of stuff to deal with, but it doesn't work that way for everybody. Okay. So the big thing really here in this case would be and should be to seem to be enjoying sobriety. It's a matter of seeing somebody, hey, that person has what I want. And go ask, right? Maybe they didn't raise their hand, but you go ask them. Maybe they say, I'm on like the 8th step, but I could certainly explain steps 1, 2, and 3. I can cover some of this stuff for you. I can be a closed mouth friend for you. Okay. Doesn't necessarily disqualify you. You I can't tell you to not sponsor. I can't do that. If you feel like you're ready. I didn't feel like I was ready to sponsor till I had some time under my belt, 4 years, 5 maybe even. I just didn't feel like I'd be able to be there for that person quite yet. I had some things to work on. So that's going to differ, right? Should a sponsor and a newcomer be as much alike as possible? Not necessarily. No. You might be a little country and I might be a little rock and roll. What it comes down to is we both kind of think alike. Personality wise, it does help a little. It does tend to help a little, right? Because, maybe I haven't experienced some things in your life, but like you're going through, but this person has, and they're able to tell you how they use the solution to get through that, right? But let's see what it says. Often a newcomer feels most at ease with a sponsor of similar background and interests. However, many AAs say they were greatly helped by sponsors totally unlike themselves. Okay. So listen to your intuition. Listen to your intuition. Yeah. Shell says my sponsor is on my ass to sponsor. All right. Must newcomers agree with everything the sponsor says? No. We'll just give the quick answer. If the sponsor idea sounds strange or unclear, the newcomer had better speak up and ask questions. Theirs is supposed to be an easy, open relationship in which both parties talk freely and honestly with each other. So ask. Right? The best way to avoid that is if we're giving a suggestion, tell why. I think one of those is 90 meetings in 90 days. Right? Some sponsors require 90 meetings in 90 days and things like that. Okay. But we got to explain why. If you explain why, usually it makes more sense, I found. So why are we doing that? We want you to get used to going to meetings. Consistency, accountability. These are the reasons why. All right. What if a sponsor is unavailable when needed? Well, then go to the WhatsApp group and ask for some help. All right. May a newcomer have more than one sponsor? You can, but I don't recommend it. I would not recommend that. Many feel it's best for a newcomer to have only one sponsor. Choosing one sponsor helps to avoid the precarious practice of a newcomer Going from sponsor to sponsor, seeking advice he or she wants to hear. So it's like playing mom against dad. Mom didn't give you the answer you wanted, so you went to dad. Yeah, it's just another manipulation game. Well, what'd your other sponsor say? Now we have to have two. Now we have two sponsors wondering what's going on, playing telephone through somebody who isn't quite being honest with themselves yet. So, closed mouth friends is different. Right? Closed mouth friends are really good for like 10 steps, or maybe something's going on right now, but your sponsor is not available. I have several closed mouth friends. I have several of them. May newcomer change sponsors. We're always free to select another sponsor with whom we feel more comfortable, particularly if we believe this member will be more helpful on our growth to AA. All right. So in this case, I've had people say, "Hey, Dion, I'm not really feeling it. I'm looking at getting a new sponsor." Great. I'm glad that I'm glad that they're grabbing hold of their own recovery and making a decision like that. I'm not going to take offense to it. It is their recovery. Right. Amber says, my sponsorship family suggests one meeting a day, at least till step 11. Then we have the steps set up to take only a few months or less to do the steps. You could be on step 11 by next week if you work for it. Everybody does it differently. I would never sponsor like that. I just won't. But it's different, and everybody has different needs. What I'm not saying is that that's wrong, because it's not. Okay? Thank you, Amber, by the way, for bringing that up. I just want people to see the comparison. So it sounded kind of rude. I apologize if it came out that way. All right. So I suggest my sponsee wait to sponsor till they've made a few amends. That makes sense. That means that they're living in steps 10, the big book version, not the 12 by version of the 10, and they're working on step 9. Okay. I do it a little different. We've got to complete the 12 steps before you should probably go sponsor. But once you're on 10, it goes kind of like that. It's just a matter of reading what's in the book for me. Yeah, I want to finish that first, make sure that we have it, things like that. Quickest I've seen someone do it is a month and a half. Bill Story does it in about a few hours. So see, yeah. It comes down to the spiritual experience. And the spiritual experience is not up. Okay. This has been my experience. The spiritual experience isn't up to the sponsor, the sponsee, or anybody else in this world. It is up to God. It is between God and that person. God will decide when that happens, if I am willing to receive it. So a sponsor is there to help you become willing to receive that spiritual experience. But God will decide when it happens. Right? That's how I feel about it. That doesn't really take facts into account, is what that means. Right? If a newcomer has received thorough course of treatment and indoctrination in alcoholism program outside AA, will a sponsor still be needed in AA? Is a special approach needed? No. No, it doesn't change anything. A lot of people, um, um, Yopo 420. Right. Bill W. took LSD and it helped him get sober. That is not true. Okay. I'm just letting people know that's not true. Now, Bill W. did take LSD. It was a course of treatment for depression at the time, back in the 40s. And they found something out. It didn't work. So he didn't take it anymore. He also tried psilocybin, which is Barton, that's LSD. Shrooms. I think he had tried some other things, but it wasn't unusual at the time. They were experimenting with LSD. So, but he was sober way before that. It was about his depression. So Let me rephrase that. Yopo, yopo. And thank you for telling, and thank you for bringing it up. Appreciate that. Um, yeah, yeah, it was part of the belladonna treatment. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So, but that's a very good point too. So, the alcohol programs of government, industry, and other agencies are referring more to and more to alcoholics to AA. These newcomers usually reach us in a physically dry condition. So the main difference between somebody that's been through treatment and maybe a newcomer is time. Time and a little bit of education. Um, that's what's great about treatment. They can give you a lot of the information before they get to us. Treatment usually, these two things should work in conjunction, right? Yeah. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now let's keep in mind that we also got to have the right treatment center. All right. And a lot of places aren't referring to AA anymore. They're going off a different kind of industry. It's called evidence-based treatment. Is what it's called. So what they do is they show you the evidence to show you that you're an alcoholic. In AA, we called that um, I was going to call it prevention. It's not prevention. When they sit down with you, intervention. We call that intervention. And intervention is supposed to lead you to the treatment. Evidence-based treatment isn't a treatment in and of itself. It helps you find the right treatment through evidence. Okay. Um, Well, I don't know. You're kind of talking. You're talking outside my scope there. But he says Bill W. took belladonna, which is a deliriant, but it helped him get sober because he mentioned it in his autobiography. Okay, I did not read the autobiography, so I'm gonna have to believe you on that. Belladonna is a poison, so I don't understand why he would take that. But they may not have known that at the time. But alcohol is also a poison, but he took that too. So you can understand it. Is it ever too late to get a sponsor? No, it's not. No. There are other ways to get sober besides AA. Yeah, absolutely there is. Yeah. AA works for some and not for some and not for others. Yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah. I don't disagree. To think AA is the only way, well, that'd be pretty conceited of us. Yeah. There's a lot of other programs out there that work great. But there are two things about them, about all recovery, no matter which way you go: free and simple. Anything beyond that is not recovery. But there are plenty of other ways. There's celebrate recovery, there's smart recovery, there's AA agnostica, where if you're atheist or agnostic, you go there, things like that. So, yeah, I just prefer AA. I like the structure. So, no, it's never too late to get a sponsor. How does sponsorship help the sponsor? Well, by giving away what it is that I have, I get to keep it. Now, they're not here for mushrooms. We get a lot of people that pop in here and say, hey, our mushrooms and blah, 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 they cure everything under the sun. No, no, Yopa is not a bomber. I can tell. And it's Yopo probably, huh? So is there another name I can call you by? Because that just kind of sounds weird to me for some reason, right? So sponsorship strengthens the older member's sobriety. The act of sharing sobriety makes it easier for a member to live without alcohol by helping others alcoholics find that they help themselves. Yeah. That's why if we're mixed up in our own self-pity and our other stuff, that that the answer is get out of self. Because the more we focus on our problem, the worse it's going to get, especially for an alcoholic who takes things to the extreme, right? Can any member be a sponsor? Well, there's no classification of levels, so yeah. Yeah. There is no superior class or caste of sponsor in AA. Any member can help the newcomer learn to cope with life, resorting to alcohol in any form. In most instances, AA custom does not suggest one limitation. Sponsorship should be avoided whenever a romantic entanglement might arise between sponsor and sponsee. Yeah, I know I kind of sound like a jerk, but when I first take on a sponsee, we have the we are not friends yet. And here's the reason that I do that. Because if I get emotionally involved, how I help that person might change. And that's not fair to them. Do we become friends? A lot of times we do. We work through the steps, we get to know each other really well, and eventually you do become friends. But when you are romantically involved with somebody or just even emotionally involved, right? Like it would be a very bad idea for me to sponsor my own child. That'd be a bad idea because I'm emotionally tied to them. And therefore, I'm not going to take everything into account, right? When is a member ready for a sponsorship responsibility? We already kind of covered that, right? All right, what does a sponsor do and not do? I bet a lot of us could go ahead and answer those questions pretty quick, huh? All right. We're not doctors, we're not therapists, we're not, um, we're not any of that in the program. Even though I was a drug and alcohol counselor and I have the knowledge, I don't bring it that really into sponsorship. That's not my role in that situation. Yopo says, once an addict, always an addict. I don't believe in. We weren't born addicts and it's a learned behavior. Our souls are pure and free. I'm not an addict or Republican or Democrat or label. I agree with you, but I'm an alcoholic, not an addict. And I feel like I was born with this disease and I have proof in it from my own experience. But that doesn't mean I'm an alcoholic. That I'm certainly more than that, right? So I can't speak on drug addiction and stuff because I'm not a drug addict. I had willpower when it comes to drugs, right? Um, I'm not sure where the Republican or Democrat is coming from. I don't do Republican. Yeah, I'm not big on labels either. So yeah, I agree with you on that. It doesn't need to be a label. No, no, I'm Dion, not I'm alcoholic. I am an alcoholic, but I also have PTSD. I have other things too. Does that make me who I am? No, no. Why can't I? He says, you're not an alcoholic, you're a son of God. Why can't I be both? You also don't get, if I can't label you, you don't get to label me either, man. Okay? So I'm not going to label you. If I decide that I want to be an alcoholic, then I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother me. I prefer alcoholic. I actually prefer hopeless, helpless, chronic drunk. That's actually what I prefer. I'm weird that way, right? But it's not fair for you to say you're not labeled and it shouldn't be that way and then say that I can't do that. So, but here we're allowed to disagree. Now, you're not right. I'm not right. We're both right. Hey, if you want to have that conversation with me, feel free to reach out. Feel free to reach out. DionMiller@live.com. That is my email. We're talking about sponsorship. Why would you want to be an alcoholic? I'm grateful that I'm an alcoholic because the only reason that I found God and I want God in my life. And can't that just be enough? I don't need to answer those questions. Otherwise, I'm arguing with God. Because as an alcoholic, I get to help a lot of people. It doesn't embarrass me. So, what does a sponsor do and do not do? A sponsor does everything possible within the limits of personal experience and knowledge to help the newcomer get sober and stay sober through the AA program, right? Shows a present example and drinking history what AA has meant in the sponsor's life. All right. So shared experiences. Yeah, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Absolutely. Hey, you look like you're a person with some knowledge. It's 3:33, by the way. And just because we don't, this is the way that I do it. We don't have to agree on anything, but I bet we would both agree on one thing. We meet people where they're at and we do what we can to help them. I bet we agree on that. You know, we both agree that everybody is a child of God, and that they should be treated as a child of God. We can agree on that, right? We don't have to agree on everything. So, yeah, let's have a conversation at some point, and maybe you can come on with me, and we can sit here and debate and help people get to their answers. I'm always happy to do that. I don't need to be right about everything. We just need to find the right thing. All right. You weren't expecting me to be like that, were you? You would try to start. Yeah, see? Helping people is what it's all about. Yeah. The way I see it is this: they should hear all the information and then they can make their own decision about it. That's the way I kind of see it. So, and thank you for keeping me on my toes. I appreciate that, Yopo. Yopo. So I had to stim a little bit, just a little bit there. Encourages and helps a newcomer attend a variety of AA meetings to get a number of viewpoints and interpretations. See, we were just doing that. So Yopo and I are here. We're sponsoring together. Introduces the newcomer to other members, sees that newcomer is aware of AA, literature is available, goes over the meaning of the 12 step, urges the newcomer to join activities, impresses upon the newcomer importance of our traditions, emphasizes the relevance and spiritual value of anonymity, blah, 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 blah. A lot of stuff that we're a lot of us kind of already know, right? Remember that this pamphlet, absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Is there one best way of sponsoring a newcomer? And it says right here, the answer is no. No. I don't sponsor the way my sponsor sponsored me. Either one of them. They were both assholes. They weren't assholes, but you have a good afternoon too, you know. But they certainly weren't. They didn't take my feelings into account. I could tell you that. My first sponsor used to say stuff like, "Yeah, shut up. Just shut the fuck up." Okay. If you're talking, you can't have an open mind. Shut up. Okay. I did not pick that sponsor. He was assigned to me. Oh, so no, all members are free to approach sponsorship in their own individual experiences, and personalities may suggest some sponsors adopt more or less brusque, take it or leave approach it dealing with newcomers. Yeah, we do kind of have that attitude, take it or leave it, because we sponsor different ways. And there's no point in wasting your time for somebody that's not going to work it that way. Right? All right. We're kind of, should a sponsor recommend hospitalization? No, but I do anyway. If somebody is going through withdrawals, I'm probably going to suggest hospitalization. I'm not going to suggest treatment. I might. It really depends. I have a clinical side to me. I've worked detox so I kind of know, you know, put out your hands, stretch your fingers for me. There you go. I'm checking pupils, things like that. So, but no, we shouldn't. We work with the family. Let's see if there's any other good questions here. Can a sponsor be too firm? No, I don't know. All right. Some sponsors believe in being fairly blunt with a newcomer. Okay. They describe the AA program as they understand it. They explain what AA is meant to them. They point out that there is no known cure for alcoholism, but that it can be arrested. The approach is not fully unsympathetic. Many alcoholics respect and recognize it. We're not, it's not so much as being firm as much as, okay, we're going to kind of wrap this up because I've been doing it 36 minutes. All right. You're going to sponsor the way that you sponsor. You're going to have different types of sponsors. Do I agree with the way that I see other people kind of sponsoring? Because if it's not in the book, it's not in the book. Nowhere in the book does it say 90 meetings in 90 days. Not that way, though. There are some unsaid rules that we tend to follow, right? Does it say in the big book you got to get a sponsor? Yes. They call it a closed mouth friend, though, right? So some things are taken out. Like for me, probably the biggest one that I see, and here again, doesn't make it right or wrong. I don't hand out homework on the first 3 steps. I don't. I wasn't taught that way. It didn't work for me that way. But that doesn't mean that if another sponsor does, that it's wrong. We've got to have our freedoms in the program. Just like your recovery is going to be different than mine, right? Now let's cover the other stuff real quick. Yeah, they were here to start a fight. See, other people probably responded and they got stuff out, but you see how that all ended up, right? Did I appreciate somebody doing it? Not really. I caught it, but I hear what they're saying. I understand why they see labels and they see things like this and things like that. I get it, right? See, it kind of goes back to I'm an alcoholic. I was born with this. Not anybody can be an alcoholic. You will have to go. You if it is not in your genes, you cannot become an alcoholic. You can't. But anybody can be a drug addict. So that label of being labeled a drug addict has more stigma to it than being an alcoholic. So I can understand why they do not want to be labeled as a drug addict. I get it. Yeah. All right. Now, they've probably done that in the past, but the person speaking didn't have the knowledge. I have the knowledge. I have the knowledge. Okay. And that might be a good person to debate with. But yeah, arguing. All right. So we can keep hanging out. Thank you everybody for being here. I thought this was I'm trying different stuff to kind of see what's connecting with people. I tried the song thing the other day, didn't quite work. You know, so yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out, how to get an audience and kind of keep them here. So this one was all right, but I didn't really feel like I did any really educating anybody here because you two kind of know you. I'm not saying anything to you two that you don't already know. So, all right. Well, hour and 15 minutes to the 5 o'clock. Let's see what I can get done in that time. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I love you. You know I do. Peace out.